Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the spring. I am Norm Round Robin. This is the third round. I've got 1 point out of 2. And in this round, I'm playing against Justin Lee. Justin Lee is a scary opponent, not for reasons you would expect. Actually, the scariest reason the reason he is so scary is because I know nothing about him. Going into this game, I have very little intel as to who this is, what his playing style is, how actually strong he is. Like, his FIDE rating is 2100, 2200 USCF, but, you know, he's a young player, and I couldn't find any online accounts. All I knew was that if I began the game with c4, there was a chance that he would go e5. Obviously, I checked his database, and in 2021, in a tournament in Massachusetts, he played g3, c6. c6 is actually the best move in my opinion. I mean, obviously you can develop your knights in this position, and that's also completely reasonable, but nowadays top trending theory here goes c6 with the intention of playing d5, and it's kind of like a Alapin Sicilian, right, except colors reversed. Now, I expected this, which is why I went for this, because I thought in this game I would debut a variation that I haven't had a chance to play yet. In my last tournament, I played against Eric Lee, and I played d4, and then he took. Or it was like bishop g2, d5, d4, and then he took. And we got this position against Eric Lee, and I got a comfortable position from the opening. So in this game, what I wanted to test drive was a different variation, not bishop g2, but actually something that I saw played recently, actually once again by Hans Niemann. That guy is really providing a lot of really interesting ideas. He's doing a lot of research, and I gotta give credit where it's due. He played this twice in a most recent tournament against Pragnananda and Yesipenko. He played this move a3. Here's the point. Normally you want to play knight c3, d5, but here what black is going to do if you develop naturally is pin you. And this move order is a big advantage for black, not like in terms of winning the game, but it's an advantage that black hasn't played knight f6 yet. Whereas, if we go back to the beginning, the move order with knight f6 and c6, if you take a look at the position, in this move order, white can actually pin the knight and develop the bishop and then play e3. Whereas, in the game itself, if you play knight c3, d5, etc., there is no knight. So it's really difficult for white to play a move here, and if white plays e3, this is just very passive. So I decided to go for a3, which prevents bishop b4 entirely. And the point is that now you have this position, and now it's black's move. So it's kind of interesting. Like, the move a3 looks kind of useless, but I was like, oh, you know, let's test this out. And then prior to the game, I looked at the game Grisha Caruana, which preceded knight f6, and then white plays bishop g2, and then tries to play for f3. Black takes, white takes, you know, you castle, white might play h6, preventing this, and there's a lot of very interesting ideas now. For example, there's lines where white can gambit the pawn and then just take the full center, black hangs on. It's a very complicated position. I was doing some prep on this before the game. So that actually kind of happened. He didn't play knight f6, he actually played this. So he also played a move preventing me from pinning him, and then I played f3, and my prep ended with that variation, pawn f3, knight f3, etc. Grisha Caruana, Isle of Man, Grand Swiss, I forget which round, 2019. But here he thought, and he played bishop f5. Now, I know bishop f5 is not a good move. Why? Only games ever played have gone pawn takes pawn. Okay, so the best players in the world all play pawn takes pawn. So he plays bishop f5, right? It's not a dumb move at all. I mean, the point is you defend your center, but now I really have to kind of dig deep into my own understanding of chess, which is like very little. That's a joke. It's actually pretty large compared to, you know, even though I make jokes about my understanding sometimes, that entire phrasing could have been used for something completely different. But no, I mean, like, I have to figure out, like, what am I taking with, like, which pawn should take, right? Do I want to go here? I don't think so, because that gets him easy development. Do I want to play queen b3 at some point? I don't know, because then maybe we just get a queen trade. And I decided that takes was the way to go, and then here I started thinking, right? No, I apologize, not here. Here I actually had a very simple plan. I was going to go knight h3, and I couldn't figure out what his next move was. Here's why. My plan is, let's say you just give black a move like bishop d6. My plan is to castle, which then attacks his bishop. Okay? Let's say he moves the bishop back to h7 out of the way. Now I'm going to attack his e-pawn. When he plays the move queen e7, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play c5, kicking his bishop back, and then I'm going to play queen b3 attacking this pawn. This was my plan. At the end of this entire plan, I have something hidden as well, which Stockfish shows me. I have this, which is just unbelievable. And the point is that after takes, there's queen f7, and God knows what is going on in this position. But that was the entire idea of knight h3. And I was like, I'm going to go knight f2. This is my plan, castles. He thought here, and he actually played a very good move, very resilient move. Move that I didn't even really look at because I don't know. It just seemed like not a good move. It's just sweet, but it's the best move. And the move is g6. And this is a surprisingly resilient move. The point is, if he puts his bishop in the middle, it has no real purpose. It actually, in many ways, gets in the way of his own queen, which is supposed to defend the center. But if he defends his bishop preemptively and fianchettos the bishop this way, it's actually kind of a tough position. So I'm sitting there like, that's annoying. Now castles doesn't actually attack the bishop, so he can just develop like nothing's happening. And by the time I'm ready to attack e4, he could maybe even castle. This is what I thought. And I can't even take, because the bishop and the queen will hit my center. So takes, queen d4. I don't even have an advantage. None of this even works. So I'm like, man, this knight f2 plan that I was thinking to go on also doesn't make much sense, because he goes queen e7. And originally, queen e7 was good for me if the bishop is blocked in, but the bishop's going this way. So his whole is a great move, very useful move. And so I was looking like, maybe do I go knight f2 here? Queen e7. I kind of thought about maybe like playing h3, g4 to try to kick his bishop out. Then I was looking at h5, but h5 is bad because it grants me this square. Every pawn move affects the board, right? So it gives, I'm like, okay, he's not going to go there, but he'll go here. Or maybe he'll even go here. Look at this ridiculous move. And now I'm kind of struggling to play around this pawn. I thought it was a weakness, but now it's just in my position. I don't know. It looks kind of congested. I don't see an immediate way to win this pawn. Like, for example, bishop g7. If I try to, like, castle and he plays knight, like, how do I win this pawn, actually? Like, okay, it looks like I'm winning it, right? Suddenly this, the bishop, right? So I'm sitting like, yeah, this is a very unpleasant move. So I come up with a new plan. I'm going to delay this move, and first I'm going to play bishop f4. I thought this move had a couple of interesting ideas. First of all, after just bishop g7, I thought I would go queen d2, and now he cannot castle. So I thought this was a useful move. Stockfish here says that he can castle. I thought bishop h6, the computer is ready to sacrifice. He can't go here, by the way. I have like knight g5. And it just looks very unpleasant for black, probably just losing. But, you know, I was like, all right, queen d2, and, you know, if he castles, then, yeah, I mean, maybe knight f2, maybe bishop h6. So this was my kind of intention with the move queen d2. The other idea is that I want to play c5 and bishop d6. So I want my bishop to go there in the future. Maybe my knight will go here. And at least if I ever play the move e3, my position, you know, even if I like take the knight, let's just say I don't have a dark squared bishop anymore, so I don't really have to worry about him being trapped. So queen d2. I thought I was playing pretty well here. I kind of liked my plan to just delay the move back with the knight and make him make moves. So he played queen e7, and this was, again, a moment where I kind of thought, do I play knight f2? Do I castle? Do I play e3? Do I long castle? I calculated a lot of different lines. I have a lot of... By the way, I even calculated c5, bishop d6. I calculated d5, and the intention of d5 is to go d6. But here's the problem. I thought that if he just plays like normal moves, I don't even think this pawn is an asset. It's not. If anything, this pawn is a liability. It just stays there. He attacks me, and then he can play like knight c6 and bring his rooks. And I do not think I have advantage here at all. So I calculated maybe 5 different options after queen e7. I settled on c5. He plays now queen e6 and kicks my knight back. And I thought he had a couple of interesting options here. Computer really wants him to go g5. I thought this was a ridiculous move. I thought there was never a good reason to play it because he just weakens himself. So now his bishop is just weak. So I thought I would castle and create threats. Stockfish thinks I'm an idiot. So, but I think Stockfish is an idiot, so we have a very abusive relationship. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think much of g5. I mean, to be honest with you, I just thought maybe, you know, I'm gonna put my bishop here, but yeah, g5 seems like a nice idea in hindsight. But again, I still was very confident I would kick out his bishop, I would castle. Just very messy, complicated position. I didn't think much of the move g5, but Stockfish seems to like it. Yeah, I mean, okay, actually now it's starting to reconsider, and it thinks that h4 is quite strong. Okay, so Stockfish is just a bit all over the place this game, and can't really decide what it likes and doesn't like. So he plays knight d7, and here I realized that he made a mistake, and I got very excited. It looks like he sort of figured out everything in his position, and his pawn is very well protected, and he's going to castle. He didn't castle because, again, bishop h6, which is why I thought this was extremely logical. Yeah, here I realized that the move that he has been trying so hard to prevent is actually not prevented at all. And I got very excited. I got very excited because I think the psychology of the game, that's just the honest truth. Like in the second round, if you didn't watch that recap, you should. I told you about how, you know, when I have the negative thoughts during the game about a move that I played several moves prior, a lot of it has to do with my opponent, unfortunately. Yeah, I think right here I got excited and just assumed I was much, much better with the move g4. The move, in and of itself, isn't anything spectacular. The point is that I'm sacking my g-pawn to deflect one of his pieces from the defense of the center pawn. Right? Because the queen as a guard doesn't really guard anything unless it's the last to capture. Think about what I just said. The queen cannot be the guard unless it captures last, because it's not going to get traded for anything. So he has to take with something. He actually made a very bad decision here. He spent about 10 minutes on this next move, I think, which is a very bad decision. Why? Because he only can take with two things. If he takes with the knight, my idea is very obviously, I thought, to play knight takes, bishop takes, and knight takes. I was going for this position. This is what I wanted to happen, because I have this, and he can't castle because bishop takes h6. So that's what I wanted, right? That was my intention. He didn't know that, so he decided to take with the bishop instead, which, if I take, he doesn't have to take with a knight, he can take with the queen. That was what he wanted. He didn't want a knight or a bishop on g4. He wanted a queen on that square, which would then force me to play this move, which is not what I want at all. I don't want my bishop traded for the knight, right? So that was his intention. But what he totally forgot about is I can still take on e4. So he spent like 8 to 10 minutes here getting to the exact same situation. He could have played knight g4 in 2 seconds, but he lost a lot of time calculating something that he thought was better, I guess, but I don't have to go for it at all. I don't have to take his bishop. I can still take like this. The computer actually claims here there is an argument to be made not to take his knight, which I was like, why would I do that? But it's the same situation. I want knight d6, and he still can't castle because of this. So, oh, wait, whoa. I'm no. It's protected. Wait, so then what? Why? Ah, just knight d6. Uh-huh. Interesting. So this is strong even though it's not even a check. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I didn't consider that. I thought, I just looked at one very brief variation, which is this one, and I thought this was smart. Huh. Interesting. So he actually played the better version of the two. So, yeah, look at that. Maybe he outcalculated me. Maybe he just thought that this was even worse for him. Oh, interesting. I'm out here being like, oh, he spent a lot of time on something Well, there you go. Live and learn. Granted, he can, of course, take and still go for this, but he would not have a bishop. He would have a knight. In the game, he ended up with a bishop on g4. So, I don't know how to evaluate which one is better, but Stockfish thinks the position is still about plus 0.5. So, I got very confident here. And again, he's bleeding a lot of clock time. He's looking very frustrated, which is always nice. As I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, he has no choice but to castle. Like, he has to lose this pawn. He cannot let me come with check. He just can't do it. Like, if he goes here and this is just completely lost for black. I can castle, and, his king is stuck in the middle of the board. So, he castles. I didn't actually know where his counterplay was going to come here. I honestly couldn't find it at all. He takes. Like, for example, I thought maybe he can sack. And if I take, of course, this looks terrifying. But I don't have to take. I can play knight g5 and he resigns. He doesn't have a discovered check because I take his queen, but I also threaten mate. So I just win. And I looked at queen c4, which is a fork, but I just come back. And, he can attack me, but I can just part ways with my pawn. I don't need this pawn. Even if he takes with the queen and I trade and I give the pawn back, this is always a winning endgame for white because I just go here. So even all the way in the long run, if I give him my pawn back, because my pieces are so active and I dominate the space in the center of the board, and my bishop is better than his, I'm just always much better. So I was feeling very, very good. But then, you know, to his credit, for a second or even third time in this game, he played a move which surprised me. In my mind, the move knight f6 is just, I just didn't even really occur to me that it was a problem. It's the best move. It's the best move because, of course, if I take with, it's check, so he can't mate me. But I can't defend my pawns very well. If I do this now, I'm in check, and that's just really bad. Not to mention, you know, the constant threat of rook e2. So I didn't think I could trade. I have to retreat. It's actually very hard to calculate which one is better. I chose this one. I don't think Stockfish can even decide. And then here I had to calculate bishop e2. So just straight up sacrificing the bishop and takes, and then, like, let's say, you know, rook a e8. And I rejected this for black. I thought this was bad because this. And if he plays knight g4, my original intention was to play queen h3, pinning his knight to his queen. But that's bad because he can play knight e5. And if I take his queen, he takes check. If I attack his knight, he takes with the pawn. And now the knight is protected. When I saw this, I actually freaked out a little bit that I had miscalculated. But even queen g5 here is completely winning because mate is defended. And I mean, he just, okay, he can get this, but I play king f2. Like, he cannot attack me. I'm completely safe. So bishop e2 was a very interesting sacrifice, but I have enough resources to defend myself, although knight e5 was a pretty scary resource. So he thought for a while here, and again, very frustrated. I could already tell. He's like, you know, 10 minutes on the clock. He plays rook d8. I long castle, because that was always the intention. If I castle short, I just lose my pawn. There's no reason to do that. I'm safe here. Like, again, when you play chess, you have to think in concrete terms. You can't think of things in like, oh, my king is open. Okay, where's the threat? Okay, there is no threat, right? So queen b3, and he played rook e8. And this was an important moment in the game because my original intention is just rook d2. Just rook d2. And then, you know, maybe e4 and d5. Like, again, you give me a couple moves, I go here, white is completely winning. Literally one move. I just need to play e4. Not on move 1, but on move 22, and I'm completely winning because I storm him, and he just has no more weaknesses. I can't play e4 now because he takes. And, of course, this is very bad. So I thought about rook d2, and I was stuck between rook d2 and rook f1. And my idea of rook f1 is he cannot take my pawn. He just can't take it because I pin him to his queen, right? I mean, it's very easy. So that was the idea. Rook d2, I didn't like this move. And, you know, on the one hand, trading queens when you're losing is not great. On the other hand, I can't move. I really felt congested here. Well, I do in my nose as well. But, you know, rook f1, king g7, I didn't know what my next move was. Honestly, well, I'll tell you what Stockfish likes. It just goes forward. And in hindsight, I should have seen that move. I was looking at ways to, like, trade off his bishop because his bishop is so active, but he goes here. And then knight d1 to remove his rook, but he goes back. Yeah, Stockfish is like, yo, he's defending. He has no fortress. d5. C takes d5, knight takes d5, knight d5, and just go for the b7 pawn. And to be honest with you, I probably should have seen the move d5, but I had mentally just forgotten about it for so long because the whole game I cannot play d5. Literally the whole game, I'm focusing on this square. And when I played knight c3, it was really more to control the move d5, right? And I mean, still I can't play d5, but, oh, I apologize. I just skipped ahead a little bit. I did not, spoiler alert, which we will get to in a moment. But like rook d2, queen e3, queen takes, rook f1, king g7. I don't know, I had forgotten about this move. I suffer from the same things that you might suffer from sometimes. You forget that because a move was impossible 5 turns in a row, suddenly it's possible. And d5 is just very strong. It's a very good move, and it would have totally tipped the game in my favor. Of course, we would have still had to play a rook endgame in the long run. So I didn't go for rook d2 because of this, but I should have. Instead, I went for what you just saw, which was rook f1, giving him e2. And I thought he couldn't take it. Now, this doesn't work because he unpins himself with queen g4 and defending and attacking. But I thought I was very clever with this move because queen g4 now doesn't work because I have bishop to h3. So this is hanging, this is hanging, this is hanging. Computer likes queen h5 here. Queen h5. Oh, computer is a savage. I can't take because my rook hangs, and if I take this, there's this. Ha 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 ha. I haven't analyzed the game yet. But I thought this was clever because also if queen c4, I can just take and, you know, I'm defended. But there's another reason which you might have just seen in the spoiler. Oh no, my queen. He can just take my rook. And it's really funny, when I played this move, I was fully anticipating something like queen g4. I thought the game was going to end in 5 moves. And then I realized he can take my rook. Because when I take his queen, he just takes, and I'm not winning his bishop. There's a fork at the end, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm worse. I'm almost lost, actually. I'm literally almost losing. Why am I almost lost here? 2 rooks versus a queen is not winning, but 2 rooks, well connected, with a knight, with a great pawn structure, and my scattered pawns that can barely make any forward progress, and they are pretty weak, yeah, he's winning. This is a better endgame for black. The only advantage I have is my time management. I have about 25 minutes, 28 minutes. He has about 5. So I immediately turn my attention to defending my king and trying to get in there. Now, I absolutely see how he can defend himself. He needs to link his rooks up and then just block my invasion. And he can slowly advance here. Probably I can hold this because the queen is so strong, but I am not feeling good. But then he plays this move, and I realize that his idea is to let me in, to lure my queen away, to win my h-pawn, and basically say I have 2 passed pawns. But that's not how you can play against the queen. You need to... Everybody has to work together against the queen. When you're off doing your own jobs against the queen is incredibly tricky, and I prove it immediately. And I managed to outcalculate him in this very critical moment. I realized that when he checks me, I have a very important decision to make, and I decide to go to b3. The point is that I know he's going to take my pawn, which is not the best move. Stockfish wants him to go for my most important pawn. And I calculated that when he takes my pawn, I am left with this. And there is no way to immediately take advantage of... Oh, yes, there is. d5. This is a shocking move to deal with 3 minutes on the clock. The point is that if he takes, I play c6. If he advances forward, I take. And what ends up happening is I wait real quick for one move, and I'm queening. So what happens is now it's not 2 rooks for the queen. It's queen versus rook and knight, and I have a passed pawn, and I'm probably winning. So he cannot take my pawn. And the craziest thing here is, look how important the queen is. If he does this, and he tries to check me to get out of the pin, my queen covers. Had I gone back to b1, I wouldn't have had this, because none of this would have worked, because rook e1 is a check, and I lose my pawn, and that's it, the game is over. Maybe I can defend, but... So I have to go to b3, and in this very important moment, I hit him with d5, he gets, shook to his core. Plays rook d7, though, very resilient move. And now, rather than taking and trying to go for this pawn, I push. And I basically am like, okay, at some point, I'm going to have to remove his blockade. I actually think, again, for him to defend this, he needs to keep a fortress. He needs to play rook h5, rook e5, rook e8, and just not move, not budge, let me overextend. But I have a feeling because of his low time, he's going to create counterplay, and he does that with the move g5. Now, if I try to bring my queen back right away, he slaps my queen in the face, very disrespectful. So what I do is I move my king, and the idea is to bait him forward, because now my queen can come back this way and this way. So I opened up the diagonal for my queen, and that happens, and my queen gets there in time, and as I just said, you have to defend against the queen with a solid defensive effort. This is not it. I now pry away the knight from the defense, and I'm able to, in between move, check him, win his g-pawn, and win his knight. And this is always a winning endgame, because again, you cannot fight a queen with scattered defenses, right? So I get into an endgame where, and by the way, here I play a really idiotic move. I absolutely should take this pawn first. The point is that I just promote. I just win all his pawns. I got really excited here because he had a minute on the clock and I checked him and I was like, ah, ha, ha, I'm going to take your pawn with check. Which is just really dumb because now his B pawn is protected. The F7 pawn is not the pawn I wanted to win. The pawn I wanted to win was the B7 pawn so my A pawn can queen. So I do a little stupid thing here. But the rest of this game is basically I have to break through this defense. And the way I do that is by slowly advancing my A pawn. I have to make sure that his rook can't get back. And I wait a little bit so that, you know, his rook isn't offside, sack the pawn, win the C pawn, and the game is just simply over because my pawns advance together, and he resigns. So, an interesting opening experiment that I was relatively happy with. I got a chance to finally play something like this. Didn't quite handle the ensuing middle game that great. He actually played a couple of very clutch moves, but I liked my plan with c5. I thought it was very logical. Interesting pawn break here to kind of create this imbalance. Very good job of counterplay. I mean, knight f6, bringing the rooks. This very well-timed move. And then, yeah, oh no, my queen. I mean, incredible. Just, my heart sank when I saw that he could take the rook. It's just not a move you even think is possible. You're just like, oh, he can't take, I win his queen. It's just, you know. So credit to him, really good fight. And I mean, I won this game because of endurance and because of good time management, really. I mean, I had him under pressure the whole game, so he was on the back foot. And by the time the tide turned, he just didn't have enough time to sort of gather his nerves. But in the long run, you know, I think he'll be all right. So 2 out of 3. I'll see you all for round 4 and 5. I'm going to play my 2 games today, then I'll make the recaps like I did yesterday. Courses are on sale. Click the link in the description if you're with me this far. Let me know what you had for breakfast today. I made a Twitter post because I ordered breakfast. I was curious what common breakfasts are there around the world. Anyway, see you back for next few rounds. Get out of here.